So, my Uncle Bob runs a slaughterhouse out in Lebanon, Oregon. It's a small little business. He owns it, and operates it with his wife, Aunt and Eleanor, and then her brother, Uncle Bub, and then Bob's brother, Uncle Bud, and a few others that you would come and go throughout the years. Anyway, Uncle Bob had very little tolerance or time for bureaucrats. He didn't tolerate them very well. Either do I. Anyway, this one day toward 3:30, 4 o'clock, this cute little fella shows up, and what he's doing, he's taking a census of small businesses. Apparently, the state wanted to know how many small businesses they had throughout the state and who worked there. So they sent this kid out to Bob's this one afternoon, and Uncle Bob saw him, and unfortunately for this kid, Uncle Bob saw a target. So this kid comes up, explains to him who he is and what he's there for. So he says, I need to take a listing of all your employees and what their jobs are. And Bob thought, okay, fine, fair enough. So he started with himself. He says, my name's Bob Garrison. He says, I'm the owner and operator of Garrison Meats. He said, we operate this slaughterhouse and smokehouse. And he said, and then there's my wife, Eleanor. She does the accounting, runs the books, and occasionally does some of the packaging, meat packaging, and so forth. And then there's Uncle Bub. That's Eleanor's brother. He does the cutting. He's a meat cutter and packaging. And then my brother, Uncle Bud, and he does the same thing as Bub. And then he said, and let's see, there would be Snuffy. And the kid's writing all this down. He says, Snuffy, what's he do? He says, well, he's our killer. He says, he got the name Snuffy. It should be obvious to you. Well, now the kid looks up at Uncle Bob and says, Snuffy, okay, fine. So he's going down through it, and he says, is that all you have? And he says, well, that fellow over there, he said, that's, I don't know his name, I can't remember, I don't even know if I ever knew it, but he says, that's just for the story, he says, that's Arnold. And he says, well, what's Arnold doing? And Uncle Bob says, well, he's our company Flunky. Well, the kid looks at Uncle Bob like, for real? And Bob says, yeah. He said, well, what's a flunky do? He said, well, he does little flunky jobs around the place. He says, whatever we think we need him to do, we give it to the flunky, and he goes and does them. Well, the kid comes back at him, and he says, sir, he says, we don't have a flunky listed in the jobs that we have. Bob said, well, I can't help that. He says, I didn't help you put that list together. He says, that's what he is. The kid says, well, you're going to have to come up with some other name for him, because he says, we just can't put down Flunky. And Bob says, I'm sorry. He says, that's what he is. And he says, it's either that or nothing. Well, the kid was pretty conscientious, and he and Bob went round and round for probably best part of 20 minutes. He said, well, could he be this? An errand boy? No, he's a flunky. Well, could he be this? Just a general whatever, oversight manager, whatever. No, he's a flunky. So it's getting to be about 4:15 now. And this guy's getting tired, and he's getting worn out by Bob. And Bob wasn't going to let him go. So finally, the kid just writes down Flunky on his clipboard. And Bob's sitting there chuckling. The kid says, okay, anybody else? And he says, well, we got that guy over there. And the guy looks over and sees another guy. He says, well, what's he do? And Bob says, well, he's the flunky's assistant. The kid looked at Bob like, really? And he just packed it all up, got in his car, and drove off. And Bob laughed about that for years, the flunky's assistant. Good to see everybody.